Have you ever wondered if something you've done in private for decades could start working against you after a certain age? We men don't often talk about it. It's a topic wrapped in discomfort, in privacy, in decades of silence. But once you pass 60, something changes. Your body isn't the same. Your mind isn't either. And some of the things that were once harmless habits can start to slowly, quietly chip away at your well-being. Today, I want to talk to you like a brother, like a friend. Not as someone pointing a finger, but as someone who's lived a long life and wants to share what I've learned. The truth is, many men don't realize that what feels like a release, a bit of comfort, can, if we're not paying attention, become a hidden burden. This isn't about shame. It's about awareness, about dignity, about keeping our bodies strong and our minds sharp as we get older. When I turned 65, I started noticing things I hadn't before. I was more tired after certain days. My sleep wasn't what it used to be. I felt a kind of fog, not always, but often enough that I began to pay attention. I chalked it up to aging, and in many ways it was, but not all of it. It was during a routine checkup that my doctor asked a question I didn't expect. He asked about my habits, my private habits. At first, I was a little embarrassed. I hesitated, but something told me to answer honestly, and I'm glad I did. He told me something that stuck with me. He said, "What used to be harmless for your body at 30 might not serve you the same way at 60. That sentence was like a light switch. I started learning, reading, observing. I began to understand how things I never thought twice about were now affecting my energy, my sleep, and even my emotional health. Let's start with the most obvious change: recovery. Your body doesn't bounce back like it did when you were young. What once left you feeling relaxed might now leave you feeling drained. And it's not always about frequency, it's about how your body responds. Some men report headaches, others irritability. A few, like me, just felt off, like something in the engine wasn't running right. It wasn't dramatic, it was subtle, but it added up. There's a reason doctors are now speaking more openly about this. Because our generation, the quiet, strong, get-on-with-it kind, we've kept this to ourselves for too long. And silence doesn't protect us, it just delays the care we need. You see, the real danger isn't just in the act itself. It's in how we use it, or rather how we use it to avoid things we should be facing. Loneliness, boredom, emotional pain. Sometimes what we think is a physical release is really just emotional avoidance. We reach for something familiar to quiet the discomfort. But afterward, that loneliness is still there. And over time, the habit becomes less about pleasure and more about numbing. That's when it starts to do harm. I knew a man named Samuel. Quiet man, retired at 62. Lived alone after his wife passed. He told me one day, in a rare moment of openness, that he'd fallen into a routine he couldn't shake. It didn't bring him joy. It didn't even bring relief. It was just a placeholder, something to fill the silence. And that's what broke my heart. Because it wasn't the habit that was hurting him, it was the silence. The isolation. The lack of touch, not just physical but emotional. If this is resonating with you, even a little, if you feel like this message is one we should hear more often, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Glowing Age. We talk about things no one else wants to, because you deserve more than quiet suffering. You deserve support, understanding, and real conversation. Now let me share something personal. When I started reevaluating my habits, I noticed I had more energy. I was sleeping better. I wasn't snapping at my grandkids as much. I was more present, but it didn't happen overnight. It took awareness. I started paying attention to how I felt after, not just in the moment, but hours later. Did I feel energized, drained, sad, peaceful? That one change, checking in with myself, changed everything. Some men don't realize that overstimulation affects the nervous system. Your brain releases chemicals during arousal and release: dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin. These are powerful messengers. But when your body is older, those chemicals don't regulate the same way. Too much too often, and your balance gets thrown off. You feel foggy. You feel low. You start chasing the next high just to feel normal. That's not a good place to be, and we haven't even touched the physical side. Men over 60 are more prone to prostate issues, more sensitive circulation, slower healing. If you're using too much pressure, or if you're not allowing your body enough rest, you may be doing damage without knowing it. Pelvic floor tension, inflammation, discomfort that builds gradually. These things are common but rarely talked about. Let me say this again, this isn't about guilt. It's about care. About knowing yourself well enough to ask, is this helping me or is this hurting me? There's also the emotional toll. Sometimes men feel shame, not because of the act itself, but because deep down they know they're using it to fill a deeper emptiness. We've been told not to talk about that, to keep it to ourselves, to push through. But pushing through doesn't heal anything. It just hides it, and what's hidden can still harm us. You are not alone in this. There are millions of men who feel exactly the same, confused, tired, and unsure where to turn. What I want you to know is this: there is nothing wrong with seeking comfort, but we must be wise about how we seek it. Our bodies are not machines. They are stories, long, beautiful, and deserving of care. We owe it to ourselves to check in, to listen to the signals, to talk to our doctors even when it's awkward, especially when it's awkward. Because the moment you speak up, you take your power back, you stop drifting, you start choosing, and that's where real freedom begins. In the next breath, I'll share even more of what I've learned, the deeper reasons men fall into habits they don't understand, and the simple changes that can bring energy, clarity, and strength back into your life. Because I believe you still have years of purpose ahead, and I believe you deserve to live them fully, body, mind, and spirit. After that conversation with my doctor, I walked out of his office feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Clarity. Not fear. Not shame. Just a sense that it was time to take better care of the man I had become. That's when I began to notice the first real mistake many older men make, one I had fallen into myself without even knowing it. Mistake 1. Ignoring what the body is trying to say. The truth is, our body sends signals. Soft, quiet messages. A slight tension. A new kind of fatigue. A strange ache that wasn't there the day before, but we're not taught to listen to those signs, we're taught to push through. We tell ourselves we're just tired, or we didn't sleep well, or maybe it's just the weather. But sometimes that tension or tiredness is your body asking you to slow down, to pay attention. I remember a week when I felt off, a kind of foggy tiredness I couldn't explain. My joints ached more. My chest felt tight in a way I couldn't quite name. I thought maybe it was just aging. But deep down, I knew something else was off. I had fallen into a habit of late-night release, thinking it would help me sleep. At first, it did. But over time, I was waking up groggier, not clearer. When I stepped back, gave my body time to rest and recover, something shifted. That tension, it eased. That tiredness, it began to fade. It wasn't magic. It was mindfulness. Sometimes we don't need medicine, we need awareness. Too many older men push past discomfort until it turns into a problem. Then we wonder how it got so bad. But the truth is, most issues start small, quiet, almost invisible. And if we ignore our bodies long enough, they stop whispering. They start shouting. If any of this is resonating with you, I ask that you take a second and click that like button. Subscribe to Glowing Age. It lets me know that you're here, that this matters to you, and it helps others find these words too. Now let's talk about another piece of this puzzle, one that's even harder to admit. Mistake 2. Using it to escape, not connect. This is a painful truth, but it's one many of us face quietly in our own homes. We start reaching for pleasure not because we feel alive, but because we feel alone. Not because we're full of desire, but because we're trying to avoid a deeper ache. It might be grief. It might be boredom. It might be shame from years of silence. Whatever the reason, that habit, once a way to feel good, becomes a way to avoid feeling at all. I've seen men chase the sensation without ever asking why they need it so badly. And when the moment ends, they're left with the same loneliness, only deeper. No judgment. I've been there more than once, but I learned something. The more I filled my life with real connection, calling my brother, sitting on the porch with my neighbor, even holding a grandchild's hand, the less I needed a substitute. The truth is, what we often want isn't release. It's relief. Relief from the heaviness, the silence, the ache we don't name. That's why it's so important to stop and ask, am I doing this to feel better or to feel less? Because those are two very different things, and one of them leads you back to life. In the next part of this journey, I'll share more of the quiet mistakes many of us make as we grow older, and how, with a little courage and a lot of grace, we can begin again, even now. Because aging isn't a punishment. It's a second chance, and I believe we still have the power to make it beautiful. Mistake 3, trusting the wrong kind of stimulation. There's something no one tells us about growing older. The way your brain responds to pleasure changes, just like your body does. Years ago, a little imagination went a long way. A memory, a quiet moment, something tender, something real, that was enough. But now, many older men fall into a trap, reaching for artificial stimulation that's louder, faster, more intense. Whether it's online content or things meant to trigger a quick response, the result is the same: overstimulation. And overstimulation has a cost. At first, it seems harmless. You feel a jolt of excitement, a rush, maybe even a sense of control. But over time, that stimulation wears thin. It takes more to feel the same. And soon, the real world, real touch, real intimacy, even real conversation starts to feel dull. I've had men tell me they no longer feel anything during actual intimacy. That it's not the same, that something feels off, and it is off. Because the brain, like the body, adapts to what it's given. And if it's fed a steady stream of artificial highs, it starts to expect them. Anything less begins to feel like a letdown. This doesn't happen overnight, it creeps in slowly. But it leaves many men feeling confused, disconnected, and ashamed. And it doesn't stop at the bedroom. That overstimulation can spill into other areas too: sleep problems, reduced focus, memory issues, even anxiety. The mind becomes restless, unsettled, like it's always chasing something it can't quite catch. I remember a man named Daniel. He came to one of our men's gatherings, quiet at first. Then, when the group opened up, he shared that he had spent the last year stuck in a loop. He couldn't sleep unless he watched something first. He felt drained, like his energy was being sapped daily. He thought he was broken. But he wasn't. He was just caught in the cycle of overstimulation, and he didn't know how to get out. He started by turning off the screens, replacing the late-night habit with something slower: reading, music, even just sitting with his thoughts. It was hard at first, but over time his brain began to settle. His energy came back. His interest in real connection returned. It's not about cutting everything out, it's about choosing what truly serves you. So I ask you, when was the last time you felt truly present? Not rushed, not chasing, not escaping, just fully in your body, in your mind, at peace. That's the kind of stimulation we're meant for. The kind that gives, not takes. The kind that heals. If this message is helping you see something in a new way, please like this video and subscribe to Glowing Age. When you support this channel, you help bring more of these honest conversations into the light. And we need more light. Let's keep going. Mistake 4, forgetting that the body has limits. There's a kind of pride that settles into us as we age. We remember the strength we used to have, the stamina, the rhythm and pace of our younger years. And it's hard, really hard, to accept that our bodies now ask for something different. Slower, gentler, less often, not because we're weaker, but because we're wiser. I had to learn this the hard way. I ignored the warning signs. I pushed through pain. I thought, it's nothing, I can handle it. But then came the discomfort. A lingering ache, tension in the lower back, a heaviness I couldn't explain. I went to see a specialist. Turns out I had strained the muscles in my pelvic floor, not from heavy lifting or intense activity, but from repeated pressure in a way my body wasn't meant to endure anymore. He looked me in the eye and said, "You're not broken, but you're not 30 anymore, and that's okay." That moment was like a mirror. I had to face the truth. My body needed a new kind of care, more rest, more water, less pressure, and more kindness. We don't talk about this enough. We act like real strength is pushing through, but real strength is knowing when to pause, knowing when to listen, knowing when to say, "Today I need to take it slow." There's nothing weak about that. In fact, that's when I started to feel strong again, when I stopped fighting my body and started working with it. So here's what I want to say to every man over 60 who's still holding on to the old ways. It's okay to change your pace. It's okay to need more recovery. It's okay to do less and feel more. You don't have to prove anything. You've already lived decades. You've earned the right to care for your body with respect, not demand. And the more you honor your limits, the more energy you'll have for the things that really matter: family, joy, connection, and yes, real pleasure. In the next chapter, we'll talk about what many men fear the most: the shame of speaking up, the silence in the doctor's office, and the strength it takes to ask for help. Because what's hurting you doesn't have to stay hidden, and you're not alone. Mistake 5, keeping it all to yourself. This might be the hardest one to talk about, not because it's more painful, but because it's more common. Silence. So many men over 60 carry their struggles quietly. We're from a generation that was taught to be tough, to keep personal matters private, to never let them see you sweat. And for the most part, that helped us survive. It made us strong, reliable, steady. But here's the truth. What helps you survive doesn't always help you heal. And when it comes to this part of our health, our private lives, our needs, our bodies, silence can turn into suffering. I remember a man I met at a health retreat. John, 71 years old, former firefighter, hands like shovels, a voice like gravel. He didn't say much the first few days. But one afternoon, after a group discussion, he stayed behind, sat down beside me, took a deep breath and said, "I've never told anyone this before." And for the next half hour he talked about how he hadn't felt right for years, how he was always tired, how he was avoiding intimacy, how he didn't know what was wrong, but he was too ashamed to ask his doctor. By the time he finished, his hands were shaking. He wasn't afraid of the truth. He was afraid of being seen, but once he spoke, something changed. It was like the weight of the world slid off his shoulders. He stood a little taller, slept better that night. Because speaking the truth, even once, starts to heal what hiding can't. You don't have to share it with the world. You don't need to write it in a journal or post it online. But you do need to tell someone, a friend, a partner, a doctor, someone who can look you in the eye and say, "You're not broken. You're just human." And that's what I want to say to you right now. You're not broken. There's nothing wrong with having questions. There's nothing wrong with needing answers. There's nothing wrong with feeling confused, unsure, or even ashamed. But there is something wrong with going through it alone. Because you don't have to. If this message feels like something you've needed to hear, I invite you to like this video and subscribe to Glowing Age. You might think it's a small action, but it helps this message reach others who are quietly struggling just like you. Together, we're creating a space where it's safe to speak up, to be honest, to grow. Let's talk about one more thing before we close this chapter. The strength in vulnerability. It took me nearly 70 years to learn this, but vulnerability is not weakness. It's strength in its most honest form. When you admit something's not right, you're not giving up, you're stepping forward. When you ask for help, you're not falling apart, you're finally standing in the light. Our fathers didn't always teach us that. Neither did their fathers. But maybe it's up to us to start that change. Because the moment you stop hiding is the moment you start healing. And healing is possible. No matter your age, no matter your history, no matter what's happened in the past. There's still time to feel better. There's still time to find peace. There's still time to reconnect with your body and with the people you love. You don't need to keep pretending. You don't need to carry the weight alone. Let this be the moment you start living lighter. Let this be the beginning of something better. In the next breath, I'll show you how small adjustments, simple, doable shifts, can restore your balance, your clarity, and your confidence. Because knowledge is power, but support is healing. And here you'll find both. Small changes that make a big difference. By the time you reach 60, you've lived through enough to know that real change rarely happens in one big leap. It happens in quiet decisions, in daily shifts, in learning to treat yourself not like a machine, but like someone worth caring for. So what if, instead of fixing everything overnight, we focused on adjusting one thing at a time? Today, I want to share a few of the simple changes that helped me, and others like me, restore energy, calm the mind, and reclaim peace in this season of life. Because feeling better is still possible. Let's start with the most overlooked shift. Shift 1, replace stimulation with stillness. We live in a world that moves fast. Loud screens, endless scrolling, constant noise. But your nervous system, especially after 60, craves calm. Craves quiet, craves space. If late-night stimulation leaves you feeling restless or disconnected, try replacing it with stillness. Soft music, a book you enjoy, slow breathing. Even 10 minutes of silence before bed can signal to your body that it's safe to unwind, that it doesn't have to chase anymore. When I made this change, I was surprised. I started sleeping better, waking up with more energy, feeling less foggy. It wasn't about cutting everything out, it was about adding something better. Shift 2, schedule pleasure like you would rest. One of the most important lessons I've learned is that pleasure without rest becomes exhaustion. But rest without pleasure becomes dullness. We need both, especially now, so schedule your joy, intentionally, mindfully, not out of guilt, not out of escape, but out of appreciation for your body and your time. Take your time, breathe deeper. Pay attention to how you feel before, during, and after. When you slow down, you begin to reconnect with what's real. Shift 3. Stay hydrated and nourished. This might sound simple, even too basic, but you'd be surprised how many men forget it. Your body needs water to function well. And what you eat fuels more than just your muscles. It fuels your brain, your hormones, your emotions. Low hydration and poor nutrition can mimic depression. Fatigue, brain fog, add more water to your day, eat real food, avoid processed sugar when you can. These small shifts set the stage for everything else to work better. Shift 4. Reconnect with your body through movement. No, you don't need to join a gym, you don't need to run marathons, but you do need to move. Gentle walking, light stretching, simple breathwork. These movements aren't just for fitness, they're for awareness. When I started walking again every morning, I noticed something. I felt more alive, more alert, more in tune with myself. And when you feel good in your body, you're less likely to reach for habits that numb it. Shift 5. Talk to a professional without shame. This might be the most powerful shift of all. Find a doctor you trust, someone you can be honest with. Write down your questions, go in prepared, speak clearly, and if they don't listen, find another doctor, one who treats you with respect. It's your right to ask, your right to understand, your right to feel safe in your own body. I'll never forget the look on my doctor's face when I finally asked a question I'd been holding onto for years. She didn't laugh, she didn't rush me, she nodded, and she said, "Thank you for asking. Let's talk about it." That moment changed everything. Shift 6. Surround yourself with good men. You don't need many, just a few. Men who aren't afraid to talk about real things. Men who have been through the fire and came out with stories, not just scars. If you don't have those men in your life right now, keep looking. They're out there, often quiet, often humble, but they exist, and they make all the difference. Because in their presence, you'll remember you're not alone. And there's nothing wrong with you. If you're still here, if you've walked with me through this message, I want to thank you. And I want to ask you gently, would you take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Glowing Age? Not because I need the numbers, but because every time you engage, it helps this message reach another man who's silently searching. Together, we're building something rare, a place where aging is not about decline, but about dignity. Where it's not about shame, but about strength. And if you've made it this far, you already know strength looks different now. It's not loud. It's not fast, it's steady, it's kind, it's quiet enough to hear what matters, and brave enough to follow it. The truth that sets you free. We've talked about the things that go unsaid, the mistakes that sneak into our routines without us noticing, the habits we don't think twice about until they start weighing us down. But now, as we come to the end of this journey, I want to speak to the part of you that knows something has to change. Because the real reason these mistakes matter isn't just about your body. It's about your freedom, your ability to feel peace, to sleep well, to look in the mirror and feel whole. You've lived enough life to know that freedom doesn't come from doing whatever you want. It comes from choosing what's good for you, even when it's hard. And that's the choice you're facing now. To stop chasing things that leave you empty. To stop numbing pain that's asking to be healed. To stop treating your needs like shameful secrets. And to start living like the man you were always meant to be. Calm, grounded, connected. There's a deeper kind of pleasure waiting for you, one that doesn't leave you drained. A slower rhythm that brings energy instead of taking it away. When you let go of the frantic habits and turn towards something quieter, something more honest, that's when your body and mind begin to feel whole again. You deserve that. You deserve rest. You deserve clarity. You deserve peace in your private world. So if nothing else, let this be the day you start listening, really listening to your body. To your emotions, to your spirit. When you feel tired, rest. When you feel lonely, reach out. When you feel stuck, pause, ask yourself, what am I really needing right now? The answer might surprise you. It might not be release, it might be reassurance, it might be connection, it might be a walk, a prayer, a nap, a conversation. You are not broken, you are simply a man entering a new chapter. A chapter where gentleness is strength, where honesty is power, where wisdom whispers louder than desire ever did. If you found something in these words that gave you peace, that reminded you of your value, or that helped you feel a little less alone, please like this video and subscribe to Glowing Age. You are part of a quiet, powerful movement of men who are choosing to live with dignity even in the most personal places. And that is something rare. Before we close, I want to leave you with a story. I once sat beside an old man in a VA hospital. He was nearly 90, clear-eyed, still sharp. He said something that stuck with me. I spent the first half of my life chasing what I thought made me a man, and the second half undoing it, trying to find who I really was. Then he smiled and said, "But these last few years, when I slowed down, when I stopped proving, when I finally started listening, that's when I felt free." That man had seen war, lost friends, lived alone for years. But in the end, it was his own kindness to himself that saved him. That's what I wish for you, not perfection, not youth, not endless pleasure, but peace. A life that feels good from the inside, a quiet mind, a body that feels respected, a heart that feels known. So take care of yourself, my friend. Speak gently to the parts of you that are tired. Trust that slowing down is not the end of something, it's the beginning of wisdom. And remember, you are not alone, not here, not anymore. This is Glowing Age, where we tell the truth, where we honor our bodies, and where we believe that growing older can still mean growing deeper. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being brave enough to listen. And thank you for choosing to keep going with love, not shame, because the best of you is still ahead.